Time to pull up a chair and talk some Dynasty football. I am your host, J.J. Wenner.
I'm Don Detweiler.
I'm Rob Mongold.
And this is the Rider Dynasty Podcast. Don, with the latest news about Julio demanding a trade, where do you think is the most logical spot for him to go?
Well, it's got to be a winner, right? It only makes sense that a 32-year-old wide receiver would want to go to somebody who's at least competing here. There's a lot of buzz around New England. I think that could be interesting because he would definitely be the instant lead dog for that wide receiver group and give them some immediate credibility. I like the idea.
Didn't you say winner?
It's New England. We just keep doing this, right? Every year, we just keep doing this. I don't know why, but they seem to think they are. We'll find out.
Okay.
But they do have the cap space to make it go, or at least the cuttable contracts to make it fit. So that's a possibility.
Well, logic be damned. Rob, follow up. Where do you want him to go?
Logic be damned, cap space, not included. I'd love to see him stay in Atlanta, but that obviously can't happen. But I think he'd be a great fit in Baltimore. Obviously not for fantasy purposes there. It'd be a crowded wide receiver core, but adding him to the Ravens with Lamar Jackson, it's immediately the best receiver he's ever had to throw the ball to. It lets Hollywood play in the flex or just serve as a pure deep threat, and it lets some of the younger guys they drafted this year come in behind an established veteran.
Yeah, and cap be damned, I'd love to see him go to Arizona because they'd never run the ball ever.
Cap be damned. Let's it might have looked nice in the Super Bowl if Julio was lined up opposite Tyreek and Kelsey.
That would be something.
If only the NFL was really like Madden. If only. All right, well, before we get into tonight's topic, do me a favor. Check out our website, riderdynasty.com, for all of our articles, and give us a follow on Twitter at RideOrDynasty. Now, gentlemen, when we looked back at our drafts during our post-mortem series, we realized that very often the darlings of the third and fourth and fifth round, they start to smell after a season, right? The shine has kind of rubbed off. We end up with some players who we're not too happy with. Now, I know that everybody who listens to this pod is fantastic at picking out the diamonds in the rough, and you hit on all your picks. Good for you. Much of us shoot at a much lower percentage. All right. So just looking at the third round this year, we're looking in a Superflex ADP, Nico Collins, Chuba Hubbard, Ramondre Stevenson, Josh Palmer, Dwayne Eskridge. These are the type of guys we're talking about here. But what we're going to do tonight, Rob and Don are going to give us 6 veteran players that you can trade for with those picks, who are going to give you what you need to compete this year, next year. So starting us off, let's go to Rob. Rob, who is your first veteran?
My first veteran is Gus Edwards, running back who is perennially underrated. He came into the league not expecting a whole lot, finally got established a little bit towards Lamar Jackson's rookie season, and has done nothing but produce since then. Last season, he put up 723 yards on the ground and 6 touchdowns, and that was competing with Mark Ingram, who's no longer on the team. He still has to compete with Lamar Jackson and J.K. Dobbins. But, he's 26 years old. He doesn't have a whole lot of tread on the tires. He's on a 1-year deal in Baltimore, and I think they use him a lot. They put a second-round tender on him this offseason. And to me, that shows that the front office certainly has plans for him. They wouldn't have used such a high grade on him if they were willing to replace him in the draft or thought he was someone that wasn't an integral component to the offense.
Now, Rob, what can you trade for Gus Edwards? What do you think is getting accepted?
I think it would take an early third to move Gus Edwards. I would be holding him if you offered me an early third. It'd probably take a second for me to move him. But I have looked at some recent trades in my fantasy league and checked out a couple trade calculators, and almost unanimously, everyone seems to think he's valued, 303, 304. And I mean, I'll take him over the dice roll you get at that pick all day.
Yeah, I guess, Don, if we look at Ramondre Stevenson versus Gus Edwards, who are you taking?
I think I would rather have Gus in that situation. I mean, you can't trust New England running back, first of all. We'll just full stop that deal. But even if it was just player for player, I still like Gus Edwards better. He's faster. He's more consistent. We already know that he's successful at the pro level. And he's going to be the second back in that Ravens system that runs the ball at least 50% time. And that's just called runs, let alone whatever Jackson does on his own. So he's probably to step into that Ingram role this year, and then he and Dobbins will share quite a bit, but both be serviceable gets. And if you can get him for a third, or if you have to throw like a third and a fifth to tip it over the scales, because we all know what we're getting in that fifth round. If you have to throw like a fifth to sell somebody, you do it.
He produced as a RB2 down the stretch last season after the bye week when Baltimore basically game scripted Mark Ingram out. And, I was kind of shocked when I looked at the numbers. There's only about a difference of 10 carries between him and J.K. Dobbins. And you can get Gus Edwards way later for, almost an identical workload. I don't expect it to be nearly as identical this year, but that's still a lot of touches going to a guy with not a lot of respect on his name.
And don't forget, it's a 17-game season. You're going to need two backs on a team.
I agree. At first, when I first discussed this with you, Rob, I wasn't too high on Gus Edwards. He's somebody who I wasn't high on going out to acquire, but I also said I wouldn't trade my few shares of it. I wasn't looking to move them because I understand his worth, especially in a best ball type format, which is somewhere where I love having a Gus Edwards. Because like you said, you never know which week is going to be the week where he does get the touchdown and a couple more of the goal line carries and can really pop for you. Don, who do you have as your first target?
So let's start with the tight end position here. Now, this is going to be certainly more valuable in the tight end premium setting. But Anthony Firkser is an interesting guy. He's someone that you can probably get on the low. You go inquiring, most people aren't really going to think about it too much. Last year, he had 53 targets, 38 catches for 387 and a TD. That's nice. That's great. But the thing is, the Titans did nothing to address the tight end situation, and they let Jonnu Smith walk. And last year, Jonnu Smith accounted for 65 targets. So if you take those 65, and you're not going to give them all to Firkser, but still, if you even give him half, you're now talking about to almost an 80 target tight end here. So there's a lot of potential. The kid's coming into that sweet spot for tight ends. He's entering year 4. He's at Harvard, so he's a smart player. They already like him. He's been on the roster, and his target share has increased every year, even though Jonnu Smith was already there. And the competition is, let's be charitable, it's light. There's a dude named Jeff Swain who's already 27 and hasn't gotten more than 12 targets in a year, and a rookie they brought in from Vandy named Jared Pinkney. So there's your competition here in an offense that, admittedly doesn't throw the ball around a whole lot, but thought enough that they didn't bother to replace Jonnu Smith after he walked. So it's entirely possible that the target share goes right to Firkser. And in the last 2 years, Tennessee has had 108, and then last year 138 total tight end targets. So that stands to say that there's going to be a lot more work coming Firkser's way.
All right, it's all about the Benjamins, though. Tell me, what are we looking for Firkser? What are you willing to pay? What are you willing to give up in order to acquire the player?
So I would give you, if I was trying to acquire him, I would start with a 3 and be willing to throw a 4 on top of that 3 at least. Or if I happen to have 2 3s, which I do in many of my leagues, I would give you both 3s for him. I think he's that good of an upside play, but it's got to be a tight end premium league. You're not doing this in a regular league that doesn't put the extra value on the tight end.
I think you're stuck somewhere in the middle there, Don. I'm not going to lie to you. I think you're offering too much. Like that third is too much for a single tight end league, like non-premium.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's enough to get it for you in a tight end premium league.
Yeah,
I think you might actually have to go up to a second.
I would pay the second too. Tight ends are so valuable, and we see this all the time in our tight end premium leagues that guys are falling over themselves to get tight ends however they can. Even if they're just dart throws, they're still paying high value. I mean, we've seen Pat Fryermuth go in the first in several drafts. So it's one of those deals where even blocked guys are getting picked high. If you got to give up a mid-second, I don't think you bat an eye.
Yeah, like I said, I agree with the player. I think Ferkser is, even though I always say Fersker, I don't know how to say his name. You think I would be able to figure it out as a public school teacher, but nope. I just think your evaluation of him is a little low. I think he would go higher.
I'm a little torn. I'd be willing to pay a second, but I'm also in a 10-man tight end premium league right now, and he's a free agent right now. And you better believe when the draft ends next week, if anyone in that league's listening, I have a lot of fab allocated to him. He will probably end up on my team unless you're going to blow the bank. He's someone I absolutely want, but I think he might be able to start lower than a third round pick, and someone might be willing to let him go for less than that. And I think you guys really undersell the targets available. I mean, we talked about, the vacated targets from Johnny Smith, but the wide receiving core is decimated other than A.J. Brown. It's something about 48% of the targets are vacated in Tennessee this year. And they didn't bring in a whole lot of competition. You've got Dez Fitzpatrick. You've got Josh Reynolds, who I also like as a third-round dart throw. And I think he'll probably step directly into the Johnny Smith role, plus maybe a little bit on top, just because he's got some familiarity with the system already.
I'm excited to see what he can do. And looking at the trades, using the trade finder on DLF, there is such a wide range of valuations on Fersker. Absolutely start low. Some people don't know. So start low and then work yourself back to where you need to be. Don, you just went. Rob, you're up.
I'm going to stick with the tight end position here, and my second player I'd be targeting with a third round pick is Blake Jarwin. If I'm in win now mode, I would much rather have Anthony Ferkster. Now I don't know how to say his name. JJ's in my head. If I'm in win now mode, I'm going that direction. If I want someone who's going to stick around for at least 2 seasons, and I think give you solid production at the position, I think Blake Jarwin's the man. And you might be able to get him cheaper coming off the ACL injury as well. I'd always start with a low ball offer. I think it depends on roster construction really in your league. But he's 26 years old. He's a big target. He's 6'5". I want any piece I can get of the Dak Prescott-led offense. And he comes in off a long-term deal where he hadn't really shown anything, and comes in and tears his ACL in game 1, which is unfortunate. But Dalton Schultz finished the year as the tight end 11 with a motley crew of quarterbacks in Dallas. I mean, Andy Dalton, Cooper Rush, Ben DiNucci. No one that's going to be in the league next year besides Dak. I'm happy.
Didn't Garrett Grayson get a start? Garrett Gilbert?
Yeah, Garrett Gilbert. Yeah, I'm mixed.
Gilbert Grayson? One of those names. Just keep putting them together. I think that was a quarterback in there too. Sorry.
He might have played. He might have gotten some practice reps. I can't keep track. It was a disaster. And, I think Dalton Schultz finishing at tight end 11 and poor quarterback play. I mean, you get Dak back. I think Jarwin is twice the athlete that Schultz is. He steps back into the starting role, assuming he's healthy. All indications are that he is healthy and that he'll be ready to go for week 1. And Dallas's defense has improved a little bit, but Dak's efficiency is, head and shoulders above whatever else the tight ends were forced to play with last year.
In no way, shape, or form am I buying that Blake Jarwin is going to break out as a tight end this year. I don't see it. I don't see it in his production. I know that he signed a big deal and last year was going to be his breakout. I don't know if there's enough targets. And I don't know if they're going to be worth enough. I mean, you're probably right and I'm wrong. What do I know, right? I can't see investing in Blake Jarwin. I don't know, Tom.
The nice thing about Jarwin is you're going to be able to get him on the cheap. Let's face it, because everybody's going to look at that loaded wide receiver position and be like, there just aren't that many targets. You can probably come in at a fourth and maybe even sway somebody. So if you can get him for next to nothing, why not?
Again, tight end premium or non-tight end premium.
Oh.
You have to specify when we talk about tight end.
It matters so much. It really does. So in a tight end premium league, you're coming in at a 3 and you're hopeful. But again, with so many weird landing spots and just you're already flinging darts anyway in the third round this year, the way the rookie draft fell, yeah, I don't feel bad at all about giving up a third for that. Just trying in the tight end premium. But outside of tight end premium, it's not. Like if I can get him for change, then I will. But I'm not going out of this and really working on it. Or it might be one of those trades that you kind of like float and then slow play. And eventually you get there and the other owner's like, yeah, all right, whatever. You can stop bugging me now. Here, just have them.
All right. So, Rob, Chuba Hubbard or Blake Jarwin?
Roster dependent, but in a vacuum, Jarwin.
Don, Dwayne Eskridge?
Tight end premium?
Yeah.
No, I want Jarwin.
Man, I think you guys are crazy. Absolutely crazy. I'm in no way on board with you. I do not endorse this.
I mean, Dalton
blasphemy.
Dalton Schultz put up 9.2 points per game in a full PPR league last year. That's what his average was. I got to imagine that Jarwin improves on that. And if you're in tight end premium, I mean, you're hoping to get 13 to 15 points a game. You definitely need some touchdowns there. And Schultz did it with Cooper, Lamb, Gallup. They were all healthy. They just had no one to give them quality targets. I'm really not that worried. I think we can feed four mouths here.
We.
Ooh, yeah, that's
You're
gross.
taking some snaps.
I'm not a.
You're
Cowboys
going behind
fan.
center,
please,
Rob.
Please edit that up.
No, it's okay. I always say we when we refer to the Jets. As
I'm
suck,
not them boys.
We stink, and we will always be horrible. Don.
All right.
Please break me out of this tight end nightmare.
Oh yeah,
I don't want to talk
absolutely
about
are. I'm totally done with tight ends now. We're
you.
sailing the ship on down the line here. I'm going to go to New York and talk about some Giants here. The New York Giants have rearranged their offense in such an interesting way that I feel like there's a forgotten piece here that you should be able to snap up on the cheap. Darius Slayton is an interesting guy. He's coming into year 3 now out of West Virginia. Fast, very capable wide receiver, and he's a guy who's already gotten significant target share. In 2019, he had 83. Last year, he had 97. Granted, that didn't turn into huge production. Last 2019, that turned into 740 yards and 8 TDs. That's real nice. Most of them were of the big variety. Last year, it was 750 and 3 TDs. Didn't pan as much. The problem is the competition that was brought in. Galladay is new to town and is going to demand his targets. That's the whole reason you bring him, the whole reason you back up the Brinks truck to pay him. He's going to get the targets. But that's actually going to aid Slayton here because that leaves the wide receiver 2 very open. His competition for wide receiver 2 is a Kadarius Toney who's probably not going to be in that conversation. He's probably going to be more of a slot guy, wide receiver 3 kind of gadget player. And then you got Sterling Shepard, who I've just never really had a tremendous amount of faith in. Even though he had 90 targets last year, Slayton still outpaced him with 97. And that was in a bizarre offense that was predicated on the absence of Saquon and really any functional running game. I mean, yeah, Gallman was there and did things, but whatever. This year...
Put some respect on that name, Don.
Okay. This year with Saquon back in business, that's going to change the dynamic and really open up opportunity for the wide receiver. So if Jones progresses at all in his development and Slayton just maintains that 97 to 100 target range as the wide receiver 2/3 there, I still feel like there's a lot of potential in that. Again, 800 yards and 5 to 7 touchdowns is very realistic. And compared to what you were going to get out of that 3rd round pick that you could probably snag him for, that's going to exceed whatever you were probably going to get in that 3rd round. I mean, last year, if you look at it, the Giants ran 44 to 56. back then when they had better targets, there's more there. So I still feel like Slayton's the guy here. Cheap ad.
All right.
Should get him.
Cheap ad. I think you can definitely get him for a third. Looking through some Superflex trades, I see anywhere from a 3-1 to a 3-12. I see him and a little bit of fab getting traded for Marvin Jones. So I think he's a definite possible get. And he was we were all excited about Darius Slayton last year, weren't we?
Really were.
So that's a definite good grab. I can't see anybody on this list who's going in the third round who's going to see 90 plus targets. Right? Targets are king. Rob, for your third and final veteran target, who is it going to be?
What if I told you for a third round pick, you could get the running back 13 in 2018 and the running back 19 in 2019?
I'm intrigued.
We don't need to talk about his 2020 season. We don't need to talk about that.
2020 didn't happen. No one saw it.
Yeah, just ignore last season. But if you could get that guy for a third round pick, you'd do it all day, wouldn't you?
Tell me more.
I mean, is it Todd Gurley?
Ooh, no. I think you can get Todd Gurley off your waiver wire right now. It's a name slightly less gross, depending on...
Whoa, wait a second. Did we see where Todd Gurley was visiting?
No, I've missed this.
Did not.
Yeah, sorry. It was right before the pod. I'm sorry, Rob, for interrupting. Detroit.
No.
Like, they need another running back.
Detroit. Sometimes I like to see, like, Ryan cry a little bit, but, man, they're making the Jets look ept. Is ept is the word? Ept. The opposite of inept?
I guess?
I'm an English teacher. I don't know. I'm going to go with that.
I mean, they're clearly establishing an identity down there. Big guys to block and running backs. Lots of running backs.
I guess due diligence, right?
Wow. Sorry about that. Anyway, I apologize. Back to you and your third pick. What would I do if you told me? I don't know. What would I do?
Interrupt him.
This guy is playing in just as crowded of a backfield as Todd Gurley might be playing, but I think he's got a clear path for touches, and I'm talking about newly signed Texans running back Phillip Lindsay.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, he's got Mark Ingram, who I think saw a steep decline last year, and he's got David Johnson, who hasn't been the Pro Bowler he was a few seasons ago in Arizona. He's had lingering issues. He can't seem to stay healthy. My bet is the Texans' offense is terrible. That's not even a bet. That's just facts. They're going to be awful next year. I don't see Ingram I can't imagine Ingram seeing the field a whole lot when they're trailing. He's not the pass catching back that Phillip Lindsay and David Johnson can offer. I imagine it's going to be mostly those two, and maybe we see some Ingram and goal line situations the once a game they make it down there, or some garbage time carries. But I will bet on Phillip Lindsay versus David Johnson. One of those guys is a few years younger. He's produced a little bit more recently, and I'll take Phillip there. I think he's got just as good of a chance to win the starting job as David Johnson. And for a third round pick, I'm willing to see how things shake out there.
I completely agree with you, except I think your valuation is too low. You are not going to be able to get Phillip Lindsay in most leagues for a third. In my opinion, only because I went Phillip Lindsay shopping, because I'm a huge Phillip Lindsay fan. Me and I guess you, which makes two of us now. And I got rejected everywhere. Offering a third for Phillip Lindsay.
Just send his 2020 stat line over. It's gross. 502 yards on the ground and 28 yards receiving. 28 yards receiving. He's an undersized back. He might have regressed a little bit as a pass catcher last year, but it also has a lot to do with the Broncos offense not being very good.
I think what you're going to find when you go to try to make trades for Phillip Lindsay, that he ends up with people like me who love Phillip Lindsay.
Who went out and got him last year.
against everybody's recommendations. So if you still have Philip Lindsay, you probably believe in him. And that's why I think his cost is higher right now, because he's already in the hands of the people who appreciate his ferocity and his amazing running ability. But I so wanted to share. I'm going to keep shopping, though, and I'm going to try to get him for a third. What would you be willing to give up, though? How high of a pick?
I think third is the limit for me. There's some guys in the late second round that I'd probably rather take a shot on. Probably 3-1. Honestly, probably around the 3-3, 3-4 range. I think there's about 26, 27 guys I really like. And then after that, it's a crapshoot.
I would go all the way up till about 211.
I start dropping off at the end of the second round. Like there's a certain group of guys I like. Then there's some guys I like. And then there's the third round and after. And it's...
I like Lindsey better than any running back you can get in the late second, early third round, except for maybe Elijah Mitchell. I'm worried his ADP is going to creep up with the injuries in the 49ers backfield. But I think I'd rather take a shot in the early third on another Texans player, someone like Nico Collins or Davis Mills, or someone that maybe gives you a little bit more upside and longevity.
Hey, and if I can throw a bonus one in to this game we're playing today, for a third round pick, if Julio gets traded, there's going to be a missing role in town. I mean, sure, Pitts is there, but Pitts is going to feed on what Pitts feeds on. But I think you're going to be looking for somebody to step into that wide receiver role. Frank Darby was drafted there. That's somebody you can probably get in the 4th round or 5th round of your drafts. You can also probably trade a 4th or even a 5th for Olamide Zaccheaus, who was their deep threat last year. He would only come on for deep passes. They seemed to be kind of segmented in what they were using him for. But, he's somebody you can acquire for a later pick that might be worth that raffle ticket. Frank Darby and Olamide.
I like Frank Darby, but I thought you were going to go with Russell Gage as a dart throw there in Atlanta. That would be my choice.
He's my given. Sorry, I already consider Russell Gage.
Yeah, he at this point
a good player.
At this point, he's a known commodity.
Yeah, at least in our pod, and it's maybe because I forget who wrote the article last year on Russell Gage, and got me really looking at him last year. So I apologize for that. You're right. But I think those three are good possibilities to, invest a later pick in.
I really
like get more targets.
I really like Frank Darby's tape, and I'm surprised did he go undrafted or just very late? But I was surprised, regardless. I thought he'd be an early day 3 pick.
Frank Darby was drafted. I'm not sure where. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I can look it up. Hold on. Let me type on my loud keyboard.
6th round, pick 187.
There you go.
Okay, so you did a little bit faster. Good.
Well played, sir.
But yeah, so I think he's definitely worth a lottery ticket. Speaking of, last up, Mr. Detweiler, who do you have for us to finish off our list?
Well, it is so apropos that you're talking about lottery tickets and gambling here, because now we're going to Vegas. John Brown, all 31 years old of John Brown, wound up in Vegas. If ever there was something that would just bring a smile to the late, great Al Davis, here it is. Absolute burner winds up in town to go with another absolute burner, except John Brown has hands. Henry Ruggs, last year Ruggs had the 43 targets. We would expect more out of a very high first-round draft pick. We would hope that would go up. But last year, the Raiders' target leader was Nelson Aguilar, who is no longer in town. That leaves 82 vacated targets and a whole bunch of others that were allocated to all kinds of crazy places that just need a home. And hey, look, John Brown's in town, and he's the only new wide receiver brought in. He's a vet. He is an absolute pro. And he's only a year separated from a 115 target, 1,060 yard, 6 TD campaign. If you can get John Brown, and the only reason he's probably in this range is because he's 31 and we are a Dynasty podcast, you're not looking at him forever, but for the next 2 years or so with a reliable quarterback like Derek Carr, I know that may cause some eye rolls among the faithful, but hey, he is. Just look at the stats. He's always right around that QB 12 neighborhood. So here it is, Smokey Brown.
I'm a big fan. Like you said, Derek Carr's always underrated, and you've got two flashier names there in Brian Edwards and Henry Ruggs that everyone wanted a piece of last year, and they've done nothing but be uninspiring. It's the Darren Waller show. It's Hunter Renfrow, and outside from that, there's tons of available targets and a room for a playmaker to make an impact on this team.
I'm a huge Smokey Brown fan. I was so excited when he went to Buffalo 2 years ago that he was going to catch all the bones from Josh Allen, and he did. And that wasn't the great Josh Allen of last year. That was Josh Allen of 2 years ago, and he still put up numbers. Smokey Brown's going to eat. I'm very, very happy for him in his redemption tour since he escaped Arizona and his injury-plagued time there. That's fantastic. So let's just go over these six. We had Gus Edwards, Anthony Firkser, Blake Jarwin, Darius Slayton, Phillip Lindsay, Smokey Brown, and then the old Russell Gage, Frank Darby, Olamide bonus. Anybody else you guys want to throw in to this list? Anybody who didn't make the cut, but you'd still want?
Depending on team construction, there's a couple of tight ends out there that I still like. I try to hesitate on picking 3 tight ends, but if you're a contender, I'm not opposed to trying to move Gronk or to acquire Gronk for a 3rd round pick. He's pretty solid last year. OJ Howard was out most of the year with an Achilles injury, so we might see that play out a little bit differently with a healthy receiving core. But the Brady Gronk love is real, and give me a piece of it for a 3rd round.
Don, you have anybody?
If you can get your hands on Reynolds that just went to Tennessee for cheap, I think that's a very real possibility of having somebody who can outperform his career norms. He's going to step into where Corey Davis was and perform the same role. He was kind of growing as a Ram, and now I think it's an opportunity here in Tennessee for him.
He's better than Dez Fitzpatrick, and I think exactly like you said, he was growing as a Ram. He was the wide receiver 4 on the Rams when they had an absolutely loaded wide receiving core. I mean, it's hard playing behind Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks, and Cooper Kupp. But whenever there's an injury, he came in and produced every time.
And produced every time, Rob. He was consistent. Any of those top 3 were injured, you could easily slide him into your lineup and know that there wouldn't be that big of a dip in production. I'm looking forward to see what he can do, and he is somebody who I'm definitely trying to acquire for later draft picks.
I can't even keep track of the coaching trees and what's going on in Tennessee as well, but I know previously that was a Sean McVay tree, so I think that they might run a pretty similar offense. It might be a pretty seamless transition. I'm not sure what it is now, but I imagine it won't take them long to pick up the offense and be able to make an impact.
All right, gentlemen, it's time for tags, where you let the riders know where they can find you, and any final thoughts. Don.
Guys, it's always so important here with the fantasy realm that this is your team. Make sure that you're putting in the hustle, putting in the work, and finding these guys late, because rather than just reading off ESPN and seeing what's going on, check in with the local writers, check in with your teams, and find the beat writers who have a feel for what's going on with your franchises. That's where you're going to get the best insiders to find the best sleepers.
Absolutely. Robert.
On an off fantasy note, my wife is 5 months pregnant right now, so I've been learning a lot about babies. Fun fact of the day: you cannot give newborns water. It's not good for them. If I'm just learning this at 33 years old, I figured maybe this is a pro tip for some of the listeners out there. Don't give a newborn water.
So say you have a baby and the baby comes back from like a 5K. They're sweating, dripping sweat, need to replenish their electrolytes. You can't give them any water. You just go straight for Gatorade.
Straight for the milk. Straight for the milk.
Milk was a bad choice. Milk was a bad choice. I'm at JJ Wenner on Twitter. Thank you to Don and Rob for coming on tonight, teaching me all about babies. And thank you to all the riders out there for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Now, from all of us to all of you, be safe, be well, and remember, never say anything to make a meeting longer or cut a happy hour short. Boat drinks, my friends. Boat drinks.